Today on Biblical Higher Ed Talk, I sit down with Bill McCarthy, chairman of the board of Logos Bible Software, to discuss his leadership experiences in the tech space, as well as his passion for global evangelism. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Philip Dearborn, president of ABHE. And my guest this week is Bill McCarthy. Bill serves as the former CEO and now chairman of the board of Logos, which a lot of us know as Logos Bible Software. Logos is a key partner with ABHE, has been for many years, as we truly believe that the product Logos is just such a powerful tool for those who are serious studiers of biblical and theological education, higher education. And I've invited Bill in to talk about his leadership experiences and his passion for investing in what God is doing globally through the church. Just a great guy that I've really enjoyed. Every time we get together, I enjoy having a conversation with you, Bill. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Philip. It's my privilege, first of all, and I love our time together. I wish we had a little bit more time, but as a partner to Logos, ABHE has been invaluable, and as a friend of mine, I appreciate all that you're doing.
Absolutely, you bet. And the times that we have connected, this isn't part of our questions, but we share something in common in that we're taking care of aging parents and fathers with dementia, which is a horrible thing to observe and be a part of. But at the same time, there are humorous moments as you parent your parents.
I think it's fathers with dementia with strong wills.
There it is. That's what it is. I'm not sure anybody has written the book on that, but no. maybe you and I can collaborate and we'll make a killing. I'm sure. So you've had quite a career leading in a lot of different tech spaces in the corporate setting, and you're kind of using all of those experiences now coming to Logos. And as you look back over those various experiences, those roles, what are some of the skills that you've fine-tuned through all of those years and experiences, bringing to Logos as now you're leading Logos forward?
Yeah, and it might even help to, I didn't know there was a Logos out there. I suppose I had run across it doing some type of search when I was studying the Bible, but I didn't know that you could bring technology. It's an amazing product. It's an incredible company. The people are amazing. I just had no idea it was out there. And when I received a phone call, I think I've told you this before, Philip, I felt like I was kind of moving towards retirement in more board level roles, which are not as heavy responsibility operationally day to day. And at the same time, when I heard about this company, it was only a few sentences into talking to a recruiter. I was like, gosh, I think I'm supposed to do this. I mean, I just felt it in my heart. I was like, man, and I have loved it. You asked that question, like, in my background, I have done a lot of unique things. I guess I just turned 60 this year. So you kind of look back and you're like, okay, a lot of experiences. And I was involved in venture capital, like early stage companies, all the way through being in really big organizations like Cisco, the more from the internet standpoint, and just have learned so much. I've done private equity, I've done public companies, and the thing that I think the very first day when I got to Logos, I went to headquarters and I spent some time talking to the leadership team, and I said there are really four things that I find every leader has a responsibility to do. One is establish the vision and strategy for your given group. And it sounds easy to say that, but coming up with a vision it's not like overnight success. Sometimes you got to iterate and work on that. But I think that's job one. The second thing, which I believe is really where the heart of leadership starts to show up, is how do I take what I view as a very well thought out strategy. Sometimes to me, that's like 3 or 4 distinct things, not 40. but say 3 or 4. And how do I operationalize that? Or said differently, how do I make it real? How do I start to take those concepts, the vision I have and the strategy that I have, and how do I work really hard with my people, systems, tools, process, customers? How do I start to operationalize and make that strategy real? And then the third layer of what I think of as any leader's responsibility comes into play. You're building capability. Like if I were to, when I worked at Cisco, I was part of a team that built a relatively new space for the company. And I heard recently, we grew it from $100 million to like $1.5 billion over 4 or 5 years. So it was really exciting to be a part of that. I heard some results recently, and it's still one of the fastest growing and strongest portions of the company at Cisco. Wow. And I left in 2016. So the capability to go after that market and all that it was required to that is still present within Cisco. And I think that's a good, I'm proud of that because I feel like that's something that lives on beyond your immediate operational leadership. Yeah. And then the fourth thing is aligning culture. Because in any company, whether it's big or small, you want to make sure that the culture of that organization is well aligned. And we can feel good culture. We can feel bad culture. But I think those are the things that I wouldn't say Logos was lacking all of that. It was just the language I used and the way I thought about it.
As you've observed different organizations, either being in them or in the different sectors that you've been in, tech or whatever, of those 4, do you see a common one that is more difficult for organizations to navigate through?
Second point is the operationalizing strategy. It's just trying to make it real. It just is. It's hard work, and it requires that I used to use this term, interdependent partnering within, like sometimes you don't have the authority to just tell everybody to do X, Y, and Z. Most of the time you don't. How do you work with others in a collaborative manner towards a common outcome where everybody's kind of coming alongside and usually it's helpful to have a vision that you're driving towards and an agreement that the strategy that you're executing is right. But you, as a leader, you have to live in that process of trying to make the strategy real every single day. So how do you, it's a fascinating, and I would guess that second one, when you look at the industry of biblical or Christian higher education, it's the same thing. We don't lack vision. You have a huge vision because of who we serve. I think where I see the breakdowns is operationalizing that vision and scaling it appropriate to the resources that you have. I've seen instances where it's such a big vision, but there's no way that it's incompatible with the resources that particular institution has. And it outstretches the capacity of the team and therefore just becomes, there's just no way. It becomes a demotivator. Right. That's self-defeating, isn't it? When you're...
But who in the organization has that responsibility? Obviously, the CEO takes lead responsibility in making sure that vision is operationalized. Do you want that trait also in your leadership team? Do you want it throughout the entire organization? Because at some level, different people have different responsibilities and are more tactile in what they have to accomplish. So how do you see that throughout leadership in the organization?
I've always I remember early in my career, I don't know who told me this, but they're like, when you work with someone or you hire somebody, you should make sure they're coachable and they're capable. If one of those is 0, then, you're probably you could spend your whole life coaching somebody who's not capable, or you have somebody very capable and they couldn't be coached. But because I worked in some, I tell you what, if you're in Silicon Valley, you meet some really, really, really smart people. And some of them are renegade. They want to go do their own thing all the time. And it's wired into, that's an innovative world out in Silicon Valley, right? You can have team members at Logos, or you can have them in higher ed. They can be off the reservation, so to speak, in terms of what their vision is. And that's where I think the alignment responsibility for a leader is so important. You're constantly bringing people back into alignment. It's good to have people challenge the strategy. That's a wonderful thing. It's great to have, gosh, I heard this about even church or religions or faiths that go through change. Sometimes it starts in the congregation and it drives change through to leadership. That's not a bad thing. But if that's happening all the time, you just kind of have rebellion and chaos, right?
Right.
So finding that line where it's okay to be innovative in your thinking as a member of a team. It's okay to say, hey, I'm challenging the direction that we're headed. I really want to push against that a little bit. Those things that's fine, but there's also this moment with leadership in teams where somewhere you have to say, we're going to snap the chalk line and we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
We all don't have to love it, and I could even be wrong.
Yeah.
And we'll keep talking about it, but you can't have everybody out there trying to splinter the effect, because a team divided will fail. Leadership's multi-dimensional, but it can be kind of challenging. You're always tweaking, you're always observing, you're trying to keep people in cadence. That's a word I use a lot, is like in the military, we do what, 2, 3, 4. That's the first thing I think a lot of soldiers learn. How do we march in cadence? And in business, I don't know that it's that different. We want the team to work and march in cadence.
Yeah. How do you work through that? So I've done a lot of study on organizational theory, and so when it comes to chaos within an organization, because a lot of times when you're adding new product, or you're shifting your methodology, or you're entering a new sector with a particular product, the organization gets kicked into this chaos, right? And organizations naturally want to find homeostasis. We all want to find normal. Or if we're changing, what's the new normal? Have you noticed in the organizations where you've worked a certain cadence to chaos versus stability, that you can only push an organization through so much chaos before you need a season of stability? What's that look like for you? I
have lived in what felt like never-ending change, and for years. And some of that I enjoy because of the way I'm wired, because I like really fast-paced stuff, and I like when, if there's a lot of balls in the air, I'm usually that's not necessarily stressful for me. It's kind of calming. It's like we'll jump in and go, but not everybody. You're a sick man. Right, I know. I got issues.
Yeah,
that's another podcast. We can get into Phil and Bill's issues.
Sounds like a movie too.
No, but I think what most people want to know, hey, what's the framework within my job responsibility that I need to execute and know how to be a really good achiever and really perform at a high level? And if that's just always moving around, then that's too much, and that's too hard on individuals. And here's the contrast, though. We're in the world of AI now.
Right.
I mean, we're starting to see macro level influences like AI touching every single job responsibility in every role. And if it hasn't touched it yet, it will. It's going to. It's almost like when I was, again, being a little bit older, I started work and was using a green screen and working off a mainframe. When PCs came out, if I didn't adapt to using a PC, I would have been probably within a year and a half of, maybe not even that long, of not being valuable to my company.
Yeah.
And AI brings the same thing, but AI also brings a capability to innovate. And that's where we come back to your question. What if you have team members that are like, I want to go do this next really big thing.
Yeah.
I can see a path. I really am anxious to go push on that. And I think we're going to have more of that versus less as we see technologies like AI start to influence how we do our roles.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great insight. I think it actually leads to the fourth one. You listed the 4 areas, and that's culture. That, and I think as the senior leader or part of the senior leadership team, how I would imagine that's probably a close second if you were to rank the 4 of them, is creating a culture where, while you may be experiencing turbulence, it's the role of the senior leadership to provide some levels of stability, because people gain confidence with that you may be balancing many things and experiencing tremendous chaos, but it's also important for you to create a culture that people don't get shy of that or get nervous, or are we going to be successful with this, or things are always changing. You kind of create a culture where there's a bit of safety there that people can function in.
Culture becomes, I think it's Peter Drucker who wrote, or maybe it's Jim Collins, that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, something of that nature. Some type of quote of that nature. You could look that up and probably tell me I have the wrong. I'm also all of that wrong, but you get the idea.
It was Drucker. Yeah.
Was it Drucker? Okay, good. But no, I think culture, it can be many different things, and a lot of times I feel like the culture of your team will be affected by the core values you have as a leader. So working at Logos was so cool for me because I could bring my faith, and it's not, we're a for-profit company. There are things that we're not a ministry. We enable ministries. I think of it, to be honest with you, I always felt like the role of supporting ministries was ministry, but it's a company it's a software company and a content company. Being able to express core values or establish a culture that's based on excellence. I had a really wonderful pastor years and years ago. He said, excellence, it honors God and it inspires people. So, I want you to work really hard and produce excellent results. Why? Because it honors our Creator. It inspires people around you. I used to tell a story about pace. I had a guy that worked for me. I called him Tony the Tree Sloth. He would walk to the fax machine back in the fax days. It looked like he was going to go do a walkabout all over Australia by the time he got to the fax machine. I'm like, Tony, walk fast. He's like, why? I said, because I personally can't tolerate seeing you walk this slow. Move, go. He was a good guy. And that was kind of hard on him. But so you start to express things in terms of your core values as a leader that shape culture. And then when you say, like, I really value that you're thinking outside the box and you're innovating and you're trying to figure some cool stuff out. And we value innovation in the culture of this team, but we also value alignment. We also value moving in cadence. And so it's just that living process. I mean, this leadership it is a tough sport. And the higher up you go in leadership, I've been watching these quarterback series on Netflix, and they're really interesting. And I think Tom Brady or somebody said, being a quarterback in the NFL is probably the single hardest position in any sport because of all the mental aspects. You got to know what the whole defense is doing, the whole offense, and you're the focal point of everything, right?
Yep.
And for senior leaders, or think of some of the folks that are provost at our schools or presidents, and some of the folks leading like the business school or the seminary, they have a lot coming at them. They have a ton. And spending the time to develop your team, invest in those people, create a culture that complements the mission you have or the vision you have, that is a lot of work. But when you get it right, it's palpable. You can feel it. Yeah,
and there's a sense too of a responsibility that I don't think gets enough credit. There are plenty of books out there on leadership. I call it the romance of leadership, that everyone wants to live the highlights of leadership, but there's not everybody necessarily. Everyone leads to some aspect, but not everybody is the senior leader or part of the senior leadership. there's not that much about followership, and I think there's something that can be said within organizations when people who are part of it, who are following a leader, sometimes grace can be given because they don't see the big picture of what a leader or a leadership team is going through and the decisions that they're making. Now, I'm not suggesting that they put the blinders on, but there's a symbiotic relationship there, right, between the leaders and the followers. That when it's working right and firing on all cylinders, it's amazing what can be done.
It is. I learned that early in my career at Cisco. I worked on a project to potentially make an acquisition, and there were about 70 people. I was brand new to the company. There were about 70 people working on this, trying to get the business case clarified, and I was the front end of that and presenting it to the senior leaders at Cisco, and I pitched it with all my heart. I pushed hard, and I talked to two really senior guys. They're incredible people to work for. After I got done, Nick Adamo, who I worked for, he was a couple layers above me, but he called me and said, "Bill, we're not going to make the acquisition. We're not going to move in this direction. But you did incredible work. And all that went into getting that ready is those are the attributes we don't ever want you to let go of. So I expect you to be able to hear this news and show up for work and do your job and do it well and continue to be willing to take on and challenges and innovate and think differently about markets to go into." And it was incredibly inspiring. I never forget. I learned so many things from him, but it gave me permission. I could push, but I also knew in that moment, it's like, okay, now it's time to fall in line, and Nick needs to run a business where my portion of it needs to run well, and that's my responsibility.
And he may see things that you never saw in the process, and you trust that was the decision made. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Bill, we've done a good job of getting past the first question. so this is great. That's right. No, this is great leadership stuff. Switch gears a little bit, because as I've had several conversations with you, I know that you have a deep passion for world evangelism and advancement of the church. So where did that passion come from, and how have you been able to link through your professional career what you're passionate about on the ministry side of things?
Yeah, I'm not sure where it exactly started. I have to feel like when I was young, my brother lost his life in a car accident, and then we grew up with two cousins that both had passed away like a year later. And I think the brevity of life was so profound at 19, 20 years old. It lit something inside of me. It's like, if this horrible stuff has occurred in my life, well, what is it good for? And so, Philip, I used to go out and walk around on our college campus. I was a little bit late getting to college, but I would go out there with a Bible and just talk to people, try to encourage them to consider a relationship with Jesus. And I've lost some of that fervor, to be honest with you, but in the early days of my life, and I still feel this way. It's like, if you ask me to preach on one part of the Bible right now, I love John chapter 3, the whole discussion between Nicodemus and Jesus. Leads up to John 3:16. I love that, because here's this intellectually amazing guy, Nicodemus, who's a Pharisee, he's a rabbi, he's Israel's teacher, he's a Sanhedrin, and he came to find Jesus at night to ask some questions. But it was daytime when he and Joseph were taking Jesus off the cross.
Yeah.
It's why I love Logos. When the Word of God, like John MacArthur says, when the Word of God intersects with the human soul, life change begins. Makes me teary-eyed. Like that's where it sits. And then, this working with different universities, academic institutions, parachurch organizations, I've met some incredible men and women who love God and are influencing this world in huge ways. And I don't know, it just humbles the heck out of me.
Yeah, and you're part of a mission organization, or
well, I support them. It's TTI, the Timothy Initiative, and we just passed this year. We planted 40,000 churches in Global South. Some of them meet under trees. It's not. Who was the guy who had the crystal cathedral? Remember that?
Schuler, I think, right?
Schuler, yeah. it's not quite like that. Some of them are pretty rough environments, and we have folks in Nigeria where there's so much martyrdom taking place, but man, it's disciples making disciples making disciples.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you have a church. Pretty soon you have widows and orphans that need help, and you're feeding the poor. And sometimes the folks that were watching, change families, then they change a village, and it's amazing. Yeah,
and that's where it kind of connects too with what you're doing with Logos, because you have a big vision for how many people are users of Logos. Talk to us about that vision and some of the shifts and changes that you've made there at Logos.
Yeah, so when I joined, we had millions of people use the software, and then we look at the paying users because there is a free version of it. And by the way, if somebody's listening and they just go to logos.com, they should download the software, give it a try for 30 days. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But it's a really, really great product. When I joined, I think my inspiration, and I hope that God is in this, is that maybe we can get the software in the hands of 1 billion people. To do that effectively, we have to do things at scale we've never done before. So historically, buying Logos was probably about $1,000 commitment. You got a huge library of books that were yours forever, commentaries, Bible. You have all kinds of stuff that was included, and you got the software, which is the features in the software are really amazing. And just so if you have a listener who maybe isn't aware of who we are, most of the best Bible teachers that I know of are probably using Logos very diligently. I was with Jonathan Falwell, and we were talking, but he said Logos is open on his desktop all day long, and he's an amazing teacher. And so there's John Piper, McCarthy, you have all these folks that have used it. So what maybe a relatively small number of people were using before, not that millions is small, but trying to get that in the hands of 1 billion people is really significant. So for academic institutions, you're seeing announcements about us being used by every single student, every faculty member, every staff member at very, very large schools. We're starting to go across denominations in schools, and we're starting to see adoption where it used to be one person buying one license. Now we're seeing, in some cases, 150,000 license being sold in one shot. And so our hope is that we can scale it out. And then Global South, like TTI's missionary work, the Timothy Initiative. I was just with Dallas Theological on a global leadership development program they're doing for Global South, trying to get to large numbers of pastors and users is a big, huge challenge for us. But I think it's the right thing for Logos to be thinking about.
Yeah, and you've made organizational, and this goes to your second out of the 4 areas of being able to operationalize that's a big vision, realizing a billion users, and a recognition that the way that Logos was being delivered was not compatible or aligned with that vision. So, shifting a business model from over to a subscription base, that's huge. That's a massive process in itself, probably with some pain along the way, but it positions you so well to be able to realize the bigger vision of what's happening.
Yeah, there's a great leadership team at Logos, and Chris Magura is the CEO, and they're really, if you break down the strategy of the company, we're going after Logos for academic, Logos for church, and then we have our traditional consumer motions. We have extended out a little bit, like with American Association of Christian Counseling, we formed a partnership. We have all their content on the platform. And now mental health, which is typically number 1 or number 2 issue for most pastors in their churches, we're able to provide a evangelical biblical worldview on mental health challenges. We've thought about more resources for women, more resources for the Black church, because there's a difference between some of the commentaries and things that were written during ugly periods of our history that might not be applicable in a Black church. And so we're starting to extend the content out, and then we're starting to think about relationships differently on a much broader level. And I feel like that flywheel's starting to move in a really positive way for Logos right now.
Yeah. Well, I've been in the industry of higher education for 30 plus years. So I've been very familiar with Logos through various iterations of my professional career. And the strides that you have made in the last 2 years pale in comparison to 25 years of this. So obviously it's been good all of those years, but you have done a great job of leading significant change, all in a for-profit context, serving a nonprofit world, and that's a whole nother episode, I think, of how to scale for-profit thinking in a not-for-profit sector. But kudos to you as a leader, and I know that takes a lot of effort to do. We're coming to the end here, Bill. We got 2 minutes. So what's a word of encouragement that you'd like to leave? A challenge, a word of encouragement that you'd like to leave with our listeners, those who are leading in biblical and theological higher education?
Well, first, thank you for letting me be here. And to those who are listening, I appreciate so much just being able to share my heart. And I hope at some point, if you're interested in Logos, you go check it out. And we would love that. To me, the audience that we're speaking to, Philip, lives in a place of vision. It's the transformation of young people's lives, right? It's the education of pastors who can go and influence congregations, that go influence their communities or their families. The thing that I feel like, even like I was watching The Chosen, and I heard somebody make a comment about how young the disciples were. I heard, I think they might have been 15, 16, 17 years old when they're following Jesus to go change the world. And then they went to the ends of the earth, and they all suffered so much. AI is turning things upside down in our world. Biblical truth is very important. Getting biblical truth in the hands of these young folks or students or people attending the universities to go change the world, to me, it's a great privilege, and you cannot do enough to feed that. Most people will walk, there's a quote, I'll walk through a desert, chase a mirage, I'll get there and drink a glass of sand if the vision is strong enough. Cast the vision that they can go change this planet for Jesus Christ, enable them to do so, teach them how to do so, and let's feed this revival that seems to be taking place. Let's feed that with all that we can and bring as many souls into the kingdom of God as possible. Amen. What a privilege to serve in these contexts, because we'll never see the ultimate end of it, and that's not the purpose. But God is using us to fulfill His bigger plan and His bigger purpose. And what joy that brings when you can marry your professional life with that. So Bill, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom. Oh, thank you, Phil. And look forward to all that you guys are continuing to do to drive success for your constituents. Thank you, guys.
You bet. And if you'd like to learn more information about Logos, like Bill said, with their new subscription model, and we'll put a link in our show description, or you can just go to logos.com, and a free 30-day trial. You can kick the tires and see if it's a resource that you may be interested in using. I know that we use it within biblical and theological higher education, and would encourage you to do the same. So until next time, stay kingdom focused.
The Biblical Higher Ed Talk podcast is proud to be a part of the Higher Ed Marketer Podcast Network. Discover even more conversations, resources, and tools to help you grow your institution at thehigheredmarketer.com, your go-to community for all things higher ed marketing and leadership.